Hey, this is Dave from the Adobe Character Animator team, and this video is meant for those of you who really want to create an animated character but don't have the experience in Photoshop or Character Animator to bring it to life yet. So this is a great beginner tutorial. We're going to walk through everything step by step. We're going to use a bunch of Photoshop templates that you can download to help give your character structure and a nice lip sync mouth so you don't have to draw all those mouths individually. And by the end of it, if you follow along in Photoshop and do every step as we're doing, you should have a really basic face serve as a really good foundation for an animated character. So hopefully it's helpful, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm here in Adobe Photoshop, and Photoshop or Illustrator files are gonna work with Character Animator, PSD or AI files basically. To start today though, I'm gonna start from a template actually that I downloaded, and you will have access to do this too. So just click open over here in the start screen of Photoshop and find your downloads template blank. And again, you can download this for free in the video description. Press open, and that is going to open up, if you look at the layers list over here, a basic structure of a very simple character. So now you don't have to worry about drawing things and then renaming them. You can just select the appropriate layer or folder over here and then draw your artwork inside of it. And I think this saves a lot of time, and this is a great place to start, particularly if you're new to Character Animator. So I'm going to start by selecting face background and just making a basic circle shape to hold the whole face that I'm making. So let's do a circle here, the ellipse tool. And if it's not showing up, you can click and drag and find it that way. And then I will go up here to fill, and I can select any color I want. Usually I don't use these swatches here. I click this little RGB thing and we'll kind of move it around to find the exact color I want. That's a pretty nice looking color, so let's click OK. And I'm gonna click my circle, and I'm gonna hold down Shift while I click and drag, and that's gonna give me a nice perfect circle, not an oval or anything like that. So that looks pretty nice. Now what this has done is created a circle in my face background layer. If I click the little eyeball toggle here, it disappears. So I'm going to save this right now. I'm going to go to File and Save, and that's going to save template blank as its own thing. And even at this early stage, let's import this into Character Animator and see how it looks. Okay, so now I'm inside Adobe Character Animator, and what I'm going to do is go to File, Import, and select that blank template that I saved that simple circle in, and I'll click Import. So that's going to import it, and if you look over here in your project panel, you now see something called Template Blank that has a little pawn icon next to it, and this just means it's a puppet. And we call puppets anything that you can, any kind of character that you bring in, any Photoshop or Illustrator file. So if I double click on this, it's going to open it up in what we call rig mode. And if I go up here, you see start, rig, record, stream. These are my different modes, and I can click on these to move between different parts of the workflow. Right now, I'm rigging the character. I'm getting it ready for animation. So I can see that I've got my full layer structure here, just like my Photoshop file, character head, all that stuff. And in my face background, if I toggle that, I can see that I can turn that on and off. So with my puppet selected, I'm going to go down here and click Add to New Scene. So you can think of puppets as kind of your actors, actresses, and your scene as the stage that they perform on. So let's click Add to New Scene, and now you should see the circle showing up. Now the cool thing is immediately you can notice that as I move my head, the circle is also moving and following my movements. Why is this happening? Well, let's go into rig mode again, and I've named a layer here in the template called head, and anything that shows up in this head group, anything, is going to move with your own head as you move. And this thing, although I called it head in the Photoshop file, notice over here in the tags panel, there's this illuminated thing called head. If I click this, it would turn off, and now it wouldn't be tagged as head, and now it wouldn't work. So I definitely want to keep that tagged. And I can see if I click on this little A here, I'll see a text-based version of all the potential things I can tag with. So it's up to you if you're more of a visual or a text-based learner. So that's already working pretty well. If I go into record mode here, I can see that I've already got head tracking enabled. Another important thing to know about is this Set Rest Pose button. So basically, Set Rest Pose recalibrates your character and recalibrates your webcam to be the 0 position of where the character is. So for example, if I want to start recording and then I move over here, Well, now my head is off center and it's not looking that great. But if this is where I want to start recording from, if I just press set rest pose, that's going to restart it and reset it into a center position. And then I can move around. So anytime before you're kind of acting or moving around with your character, just click set rest pose to center it in a correct position. You can do the same thing by double clicking on the face as well. Now, if you're not seeing your camera show up here, you've got some options. You can click on this and go to switch to default camera or switch to next camera. If it's not showing up or you're getting errors or stuff, sometimes other programs like Skype or FaceTime or other video things that use video or your camera might be in conflict with Character Animator. So you probably want to close down any external apps. Same with the audio. Microphone will show up here, and these little icons just mean if the webcam is on or off, and if the microphone is on or off as well. Now another thing, scene properties. So you'll notice right now I've got this certain sized rectangle, but why is it this size? Why is it working this way? Well, if I just click once on my scene here, the little clapboard icon, you'll see all my scene properties showing up over here. And so I've got my frame rate, my duration, my width, and my height. So right now I've got it to 1920 by 1080, but I could drag this, just over and make this a little bit smaller if I wanted. So it's completely up to you. I'm gonna stick with the standard 1080 because I think that gives me enough room for my character to work with. You never want your character to get cut off by the edges, because then if you later export in a movie or bring it into Premiere or After Effects or other programs, it's going to show that clipping and it look like your head will get clipped off, which you probably don't want. Frame rate, usually I stick with 24. You can experiment with that. 12 FPS is used a lot for animation. You can even bring it up, bump it up to 60 if you want really, really fluid, fast animation, but it's up to you. This is something you can experiment with. So things are working pretty good. So let's add a few more features back in Photoshop and see how they translate to Character Animator. Okay, we're back in Photoshop, and now I'm gonna work on the eyes, I think. So I've got these folders, right eye and left eye. When we talk about right and left with the character, we're talking about the right and left side for the character, not the right and left side of the screen. So the character's right eye is actually gonna be on this side of the character. So my left, the character's right. So let's start by clicking on right eyeball, and we'll click on this circle again. And this time I'm going to change the fill color to a white probably for the eyeball. And I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm just going to drag, hold down shift as I drag, and I'm going to make this eyeball. Then I'm going to click on plus right pupil, and let's pick a good pupil color. Maybe just a black is fine. And let's do the same thing, shift and drag and create a pupil. I'm gonna use the move tool up here to just move it into the exact position I want. Usually centered is gonna give you the best results, but you can play around with that. Now finally, right blink. So what do I wanna show up when my character blinks? For me, I just kind of want a straight black line to show up. So I'm just gonna go here, go to the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to drag and do something like that. So, and I did that in my right blink layer. So let's turn all of these off and just make sure I've got everything right. My right eyeball is just a white circle. My right pupil is a black dot that's inside the eyeball. And my blink is a line or something that's going to show up whenever I blink in the webcam. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is do pretty much the same thing in the left eye. For me, just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to select all of these, shift select and press delete to delete those. And then I'm going to just copy these over. On Mac, that's going to be Option drag. On PC, I believe that's Alt drag. And so these exact same things are going to show up now into my left eye folder. And if I move those over, and if I hold shift, that'll constrain it to be exactly straight across. Now I've got the exact same eyeball over here. Now the problem is I can't keep them named right blink copy plus right pupil, because then Character Animator will only recognize the first one that shows up. So I'm going to have to name these again to left blink plus left pupil and left eyeball. Okay. So now I've got these two eyes. I'm going to just turn the blink layers off because I don't really need to see them right now. And let's press, I'm pressing Command S to save that. That's Control S on Windows. And let's go back to Character Animator and see how this is looking. So as soon as I come back into Character Animator and click on anything, you're going to see this thing that says Incorporating External Edits. And there we go. Now I've got my character with the eyes. And as I look around, the character will also look around with their eyes. Now, you're going to get the best face tracking if you are in a well-lit environment. So I'm wearing a hat right now, probably not the best idea. And the closer you get and the more well-lit your face is, the better results you will have with the face tracker accurately picking up where you're looking. So this is looking pretty good. You can look to one side or the other side or whatever I want, and it seems to be tracking my eye movements. Now, over here on the right-hand side, you see these things called behaviors. Behaviors are the rules for how your characters react. So, for example, my eye gaze, if I twirl this down, I can see all the different things I can do for eye gaze. And in fact, anything that's red means it's armed and ready for recording. So right now, eye gaze and camera input are both on. But check this out. If I click on mouse and touch input as well, then when I drag with the mouse, that's going to drag where the eyes go as well. So it's an alternative way to control. I could just do mouse and turn camera input off if I wanted to. For now, I'm just going to keep camera input on. Now you also notice as I blink, the blink layers are showing up and the other things in the eye group are disappearing. So let's explain this really quickly. What I called left eyeball and right eyeball, those are the confines of where the pupils can go around in. So setting up things normally, the pupils are going to stay within the confines of those eyeballs. They shouldn't go out of the whites of the eyes. And then the pupils, will move around independently on their own as you look around. And that's why we added a plus symbol to them in the Photoshop file. That makes them independent. And so if I go back to rig mode here, notice that if I twirl down the right eye or the left eye, notice that right pupil and left pupil don't have that little plus symbol next to them, but they do have this little crown icon. And the crown icon just means you can move independently. So even though the face is moving and generally controlling where things go, the pupils are also able to move on their own. And this is a really important concept that we'll touch on a few more times, but basically, when you want something to move on its own and not get warped or pushed or pulled by the rest of the face or body or movements, you want to make it independent. Now for blink, what blink is going to do is make everything else disappear in its same group whenever it happens. So I've got only the pupil and eyeball showing up in my left eye group. But if I had other things in here, like glasses or a monocle or an eye patch or something like that, those would also disappear. So if you don't want things to disappear when you blink, you want to put it outside of the group that blink is in. So that's why I have my eyebrows outside of my eyes, because I don't want them to disappear. So now let's work on some eyebrows. So I'm going to click the plus right eyebrow, and that's independent because as I do the eyebrow, I don't want it to move and warp the rest of the body and the face. So I'll click on right eyebrow and go to my little rectangle tool over here. The fill is black. That looks good. I'm just going to drag one eyebrow for the right eyebrow and another one for the left eyebrow. Okay, so let's move on to the nose. And to make that, I'm just going to make more of a freeform triangle. So I'm actually going to go over here to the polygonal lasso tool and click that. And with nose selected, I'm just going to draw and click, 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 and then connect it right here. And let's go to the paint bucket tool over here. And I'm going to select a color, the foreground color right here, which is currently kind of this orangish color. Instead, I'm going to change that to black, click OK, and then paint by clicking inside that little triangle. So that's looking pretty good. And I might use the move tool up here to kind of move it into a different place if I want. And I can deselect it by pressing Command D on Mac or Control D on Windows. So, okay, we're starting to get there. Now the mouth, if I open up the mouth, I'll see I've got all these different blank possibilities for the mouth. The way that lip sync works in Character Animator is as I'm talking, Character Animator is listening for 60 plus different sounds, ah, ee, oo, k, all that stuff, and it's going to translate it into a particular mouth shape. So when Character Animator hears an ah sound, it's going to show the ah mouth shape. When it hears a sound, it'll show M. And because it's a blank, I'm not seeing anything, obviously. Now, if it doesn't hear anything, it's going to look at the webcam and it's going to look for a neutral face. So if nothing is happening and you're not doing anything, neutral is what shows up. And 99% of the time, neutral is what you'll see. If you include things called smile and surprised, then when you smile, you'll see this layer. And when you look surprised, when you open your mouth wide, you will see a surprise thing. And note, these only show up if there's no other sound happening. So these three are webcam-based sound mouth shapes, and the rest are microphone-based sound shapes. Now, creating a compelling mouth is a pretty difficult thing to do. It can be very time-consuming to line everything up correctly and get everything right. And it's going to take a lot of time to make sure, I don't know what a F mouth shape looks like. I mean, if I do that myself, I kind of am biting my lower lip, but if I'm not that good at, drawing that and lining it up with everything else, that can be problematic. So actually, the best way to get started with a mouth is to borrow a mouth from another example character. And I think that's what I'm going to do today. Okay, so let's go to File, Open, and then there's another file you can download called templatmouth.psd. And this is a just basic, pretty good looking mouth that you can use for your own characters. So I'm just going to click Open here. And so I've got my whole mouth here and all the different shapes. And all I have to do is notice I've got my two tabs open here, my template mouth and my template blank. So with template mouth, I'm just going to select the mouth group and I'm just going to drag it all the way over to this tab over here until that opens up template blank. I'm going to drag down to right about where I want the mouth to be, and I'm going to let go. And now I've got a mouth. Now, it's a little big and it's also in the wrong place because I have a mouth inside my mouth folder. So I'm going to take this mouth and drag it out until I see the line right under the nose. And now I've got my imported mouth folder. So let's select mouth, the second mouth that I already had, and delete that because I don't need that anymore. And now I've got all my different mouths. So if I want to see what an ah mouth looks like, I can toggle that. Now this is way too big. So actually I'm going to turn on a few of these just to get a general sense of what they look like. And I'm going to use the move tool over here to just move them into place. And then I'm going to use free transform. So the best way to do that is go to edit, free transform. And that brings up these little bounding boxes that you can drag. So I'm going to hold down shift again to constrain the dragging. And right about there is probably a good size. And then I will click the little check up here to say, yes, that's exactly what I want. And now let's toggle all these off except neutral. And yeah, that's looking pretty good right there. So I'll kind of put all of them on just to make sure none of them are going to go off of the face, but this is looking pretty good right now. So I've added the eyebrows, the nose, and the mouth. That's enough, I think, to warrant a save and go back to Character Animator. So when I go back to Character Animator, all my edits have synced up and everything looks as all the new stuff that I've added. And as you can see, the character now has eyebrows that move and a nose and a mouth that is actually updating as I'm talking. And so it also does the smile when I smile, and it also does a surprised face. So this is looking pretty good. Now, this is really the basics of an expressive face. I've got eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and now we can add more details on top of this to give it a little bit more character and personality. All right, so let's add a few more details just to add a little bit more character to this face. With the body group selected, with the body layer selected, I should say, I'm going to go to my shapes and rounded rectangle tool. I'm going to change the radius to maybe something like 50 pixels, something like that. And then I'm going to click and drag and get kind of a torso or shirt. I'll do the move tool again just to move it in place to something like that. So now I've got artwork in every single blank layer that the template came with, which is great. So now I've kind of filled in all the blanks and I can add some additional details now if I wanted to. So for example, I want to give this guy some ears. So I'm going to click on face background. I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on this new layer icon down here in the bottom right. I'm just going to call this ear. And let's go to our circle, our ellipse tool, and just draw out a little circle ear type thing by dragging. And I don't want it to be black, so let's go to our fill color. And to get it to be the same color as the face, I'm going to click on the little color thing here and then just bring the eyedropper tool over to and click on the color that you want to change to. So if I want it to be black, I could do that, but I'm going to click on the face instead and click OK, and that's going to change it to that sort of thing. Now, I want my ear to be a little bit darker actually to give it a little more depth. So let's just drag this down, something like that, and then it'll be a slightly different color. And then I can move it behind just by dragging it behind the face background to make it appear like it's showing up behind the face. Now I'm going to press Command J, that's Control J on Windows, and that'll make a copy. And I can just drag this ear over on the other side just to duplicate it and save myself from having to draw it again. Okay, so now let's give this guy some hair, and I'm going to use this as an example to show how physics can work to add secondary animations to your character within Character Animator. So let's do kind of the same technique that we used for the nose to create kind of this freeform triangle shape for the hair. So I'm going to select the face background, click on a new layer that I want to show up on top of the face, go back to the polygonal lasso tool here, and I'm just going to click and do a little hair strand. So click, 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 and close it up. And now I've got the little marching ants, that this dotted line thing that's showing up. And I'll go over to my hair. Let's give this guy kind of a reddish hair. I'll do this kind of color. And again, I just got here by clicking this little square, the foreground color right here. I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to click into there to give him some red hair. And I'll press Command D to deselect it, or Control D on Windows. So let's just call this hair. I just pressed Enter on the name and just called it hair. And so I'm going to duplicate this a few different times to give him a few different strands of hair. But to make something with physics, we want to make it independent, just like we did with the pupils and the eyebrows. So I'm going to click on this and make sure to name it plus hair. And that's going to give it that crown icon when it's imported into Character Animator. So now let's duplicate this a few times by pressing Command J on Mac, that's Control J on Windows, and I'll put it in a few different places here, something like that. I'll just kind of line them up a little bit. So something like that. So these are my three strands of hair that I want to animate and have physics work with them. And by the way, I'm just right-clicking to find when I'm over top of something. I'll right-click it to see what exactly I'm going for to select a particular layer. You could, of course, select them here, or this auto-select thing up here, which you might have enabled, will automatically select things as you click them. So it all depends on how you want. I learned before auto-select was the thing, so this is I typically use the right-click thing, but it's totally up to you. So now I've got these three hair strands, but I'm actually going to add some additional hair around the rest of it by creating another new layer, going back to the polygonal lasso tool, and just adding kind of a background hair. And so this hair is not going to have physics associated with it, but I'm just doing this behind the other hair and just kind of dragging and clicking to where I think the hair would show up. And I'll do the same thing, take the paint bucket tool and fill it in, and there you go. So it's a little blocky, not as good as I would want if I was spending a lot of time on this, but it's okay. So I'm just going to call that hair BG, and we've got a basic character now. So, all right, and I'm just going to move a few things around here, but overall, I'm liking how this is looking. So let's save this, Command S on Mac, Control S on Windows, and go back into Character Animator. Okay, so back in Character Animator, I can see my guy talking and moving, but a couple things to note. Number one, I can't see a shirt because the shirt is black and the background's black. So I can change the background actually by clicking on this little square down here for background color and changing that to something like white. I've also got transparency options as well. But okay, this guy's looking pretty good, but notice as I turn, his whole body is turning as opposed to just the head turning and the body staying more stationary, which is probably what I want. And also the hair doesn't have any physics associated with it yet. So let's go back to rig mode and try to fix some of these issues. So the first thing, with the body selected, I'm going to add these things called handles. Handles are invisible data points that teach Character Animator about what to do with a particular part. So with body selected, I'll go down to the pin tool down here. And this, by selecting that and then click in one corner and click in the other corner, that's going to pin down the body and keep it fixed in place. A fixed handle means basically like putting a nail in it. Just keep it down in this particular position. So going back to record mode, now you'll notice as I move and turn, just the head is moving and the body is kind of morphing a little bit to match it, but overall it's staying in place. So this looks more like what I would want. Now for the hair, go back to rig mode, and remember I had plus hair and then I made 2 copies of it, and because I called it plus, it's added the little crown icons over here next to it. Now there's a few things we want to do with the hair, and I'm going to show the head as an example to start with this. So the head, you'll notice it has this thing in the middle called head, and it says a little dotted line circle. And this is the origin point. Basically, this is where Character Animator is saying where this thing begins and where it's going to rotate around. Typically, though, you don't want a head to rotate from the middle. You actually want it to pivot and rotate from the neck. So I'm going to drag it all the way down here to the bottom where the neck is. And I'm going to do the same thing for the hair because I would not want the hair to rotate from the middle. I want it to rotate from being rooted into the head. So I'm going to do the same thing, select every hair group and drag that origin point down to where it would be connected to the head. And that's looking pretty good. And then to add the actual physics, I have to add this thing called a dangle handle. So I'm going to go down here to this little pendulum looking thing, and I'm going to add a dangle handle right at where the tip of the hair is. So the way I think about this the most is imagine if you're adding a little metal ball to where you want gravity to be affecting a particular piece. So imagine this is really what gravity is going to be pushing and pulling and affecting the most. And so for the hair, I want that to be the tips of where the hair would be. So I'm going to do the same thing for each piece of hair, my 3 pieces, and that's looking pretty good. So let's go back to record mode. And now as I move around, the hair is going to move a little bit. Now it's not swaying as much as I'd like. So what I'm going to do is go to dangle, twirl that down in the behaviors, and I'm going to change spring stiffness to something like 25. And now as I move, notice it's really starting to sway and have a little bounce to it. 25 might be too much. Maybe 50 is a little bit better. So you get the idea. You could add earrings or a necklace or hoodie strings or other things to your character to give them a little bit of extra life, a little bit of extra physics to them. And this is just an easy way to do it. Make it an independent piece with the plus symbol or the crown icon, and then change where the origin point is, and then add the dangle handle to it. One other thing you probably want to do with your character is change some of the face parameters to make it match the personality of your character and how you want your performance to go. So if I go down to my behaviors and twirl down face down here, I'll see a bunch of different parameters. So one thing I always do is head scale strength. This is how much the head can go back and forth as you move your head. I usually will change this to 0, and that'll just keep it flat on kind of a flat plane, and that's kind of nice. Secondly, I can affect kind of the tilt, so that might be too much tilt, so I might bring that down to something less, so as I tilt, it doesn't tilt as much. And same with head position, if I want, not to move as far left or right. So you can make the character feel less warpy, moving and morphing all over the place if you really tweak these parameters to your particular character and artwork. All right, so we're going to stop there for today. Of course, there's so much more you can do in Character Animator, but this is the basic foundation. Making a simple face, you can build on top of this and add things like keyboard triggers, cycle layers, draggable hands, the walk behavior, all sorts of things that you'll see in other video tutorials on this channel. So now that you've got that foundation, you can check out some of those other tutorials and build on top of this basic character. But hopefully this has been helpful, and if you have any questions or run into any issues throughout this process, your character's not looking right or something went wrong or I said something that didn't make any sense, the best place to get help from that is the official Character Animator forums here, where myself or other people from the team will be able to help you out and answer your questions and get you up and running. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching and have fun.